Welcome to Bible Stories Network, where we share events from the Bible daily. Today we'll explore the life of Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn son. Ishmael's story reveals much about God's plans, human choices, and the interplay of faith and culture in biblical times. His narrative serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to God's faithfulness, showcasing how divine grace and human decisions interact in shaping history. God promised Abraham he would have a son and become the father of many nations. Genesis 15. This promise was profound, especially considering that Abraham and Sarah were advanced in age and had no children. Despite the clarity of God's promise, time tested their faith. As years passed and Sarah remained barren, doubt began to creep in. It is in these moments of waiting and uncertainty that the depth of human decisions often comes into play. In Genesis 16, Sarah suggested that Abraham have a child with her Egyptian servant, Hagar. This practice, while strange to modern readers, was not uncommon in the ancient world. It was an attempt to secure lineage and legacy through socially accepted means. Hagar's child would legally belong to Sarah, maintaining her status as the matriarch. When Hagar conceived, the dynamics within the household shifted dramatically. The Bible tells us that Hagar began to despise Sarah. Perhaps it was a newfound sense of pride or significance that caused her to view Sarah differently. For Sarah, this change was unbearable. The relationship between the two women became strained, highlighting the complexities of human relationships when jealousy, pride, and societal expectations collide. Sarah's response was to blame Abraham for her misery, though the plan had been hers originally. Abraham, in turn, placed the matter back in Sarah's hands, allowing her to treat Hagar as she saw fit. This led to Hagar fleeing into the wilderness, a place of both physical and emotional desolation. In the wilderness, Hagar encountered the angel of the Lord, a turning point in her story. The angel's words to Hagar were filled with both instruction and promise. She was told to return to Sarah and submit to her authority, a difficult directive considering the mistreatment she had endured. However, the angel also gave her a promise that her son, Ishmael, would be the father of a great nation. The name Ishmael means God hears, signifying that God had heard Hagar's affliction and seen her plight. This encounter reveals God's compassion and his attention to those on the margins of society. Hagar's return to Abraham and Sarah was not merely an act of obedience, but a demonstration of trust in God's promises. Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86 years old. His birth brought both joy and tension. For over a decade, Ishmael was Abraham's only son, and Abraham's love for him was evident. However, Ishmael's position was not without challenges. God reaffirmed his covenant with Abraham, emphasizing that Sarah would bear a son, Isaac, who would be the child of promise. This distinction between Ishmael and Isaac was not about favoritism, but about the specific roles they would play in God's plan. While Isaac was the child through whom the covenant would be established, Ishmael was not forgotten. God's promise to make Ishmael a great nation underscored his faithfulness to all of Abraham's descendants. When Isaac was born, the dynamics within the household shifted once again. Sarah's long-awaited joy was accompanied by a renewed sense of protectiveness over her son's inheritance and position. The Bible recounts an incident where Sarah saw Ishmael scoffing at Isaac. While the exact nature of this interaction is unclear, it was enough to provoke Sarah's demand that Hagar and Ishmael be sent away. For Abraham, this request was heartbreaking. Ishmael was his son, and the thought of sending him away was deeply distressing. However, God instructed Abraham to heed Sarah's words, assuring him that Ishmael would also become a great nation. The expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael into the wilderness is one of the most poignant moments in their story. With limited provisions, they wandered until their resources were depleted. Hagar, unable to bear the thought of watching her son die, placed him under a shrub and sat at a distance, weeping. But God's intervention came once again. The angel of the Lord called out to Hagar, providing her with reassurance and revealing a well of water. This act of divine provision not only saved their lives, but also reaffirmed God's promise to Ishmael. Ishmael grew up in the wilderness of Paran, a region that became his home. He became an archer, a skill that likely contributed to his survival and success in the harsh environment. His mother found him a wife from Egypt, connecting him to her heritage. Ishmael's life in the wilderness was emblematic of his independence and resilience, qualities that would define his descendants. The narrative of Ishmael is interwoven with themes of divine promise and human agency. While his birth was the result of human planning, God's hand was evident in his life. Ishmael's story contrasts with Isaac's, highlighting the difference between living by human effort and trusting in God's provision. This contrast is echoed in the New Testament, where Paul uses Ishmael and Isaac as symbols in his letter to the Galatians. Paul writes, "But as he who was born according to the flesh then persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, even so it is now." Galatians 4:29. Through this analogy, Paul underscores the importance of faith and reliance on God's promises. Ishmael's descendants, listed in Genesis 25, include 12 tribal leaders, paralleling the 12 tribes of Israel. This organizational structure signifies God's blessing upon Ishmael's lineage. Despite being outside the covenant, Ishmael's role in God's plan was significant. His presence at Abraham's funeral and the marriage of his daughter to Esau demonstrate that he maintained connections with Abraham's family. These interactions reflect a complex relationship between the lines of Ishmael and Isaac, marked by both conflict and cooperation. The story of Ishmael also highlights the broader dynamics of human frailty and divine grace. Sarah and Abraham's decision to have a child through Hagar stemmed from their struggle to fully trust in God's timing. This act of impatience brought about consequences that rippled through generations. Yet God's response to this situation was not to abandon those involved, but to weave their actions into his larger plan. Ishmael's life and legacy illustrate that God's promises extend beyond human mistakes. His blessings on Ishmael were both a testament to his faithfulness to Abraham and an assurance that no one is overlooked in his plan. As Ishmael grew, his relationship with Isaac and Abraham's household continued to evolve. The tension between the two sons is not explicitly detailed in Scripture, but the implications are clear. Ishmael's wilderness upbringing, shaped by independence and survival, contrasted with Isaac's life as the child of promise. This dichotomy symbolized the difference between striving in the flesh and living under God's covenant. Nevertheless, their shared heritage as Abraham's sons brought moments of unity, such as their coming together to bury their father, Genesis 25:9. This act of reconciliation underscores the enduring connection between their lineages. The legacy of Ishmael's 12 sons, as described in Genesis 25, reflects the fulfillment of God's promises. These descendants became tribal leaders, establishing a network of nations. The parallel with the 12 tribes of Israel emphasizes the shared blessings given to both branches of Abraham's family. Ishmael's lineage, though distinct from the covenant line, played a significant role in the ancient Near East. Historical and biblical accounts suggest interactions and conflicts between Ishmael's descendants and the Israelites, further illustrating the intertwined destinies of these nations. The story of Ishmael resonates on multiple levels, inviting reflection on themes of identity, purpose, and divine faithfulness. For individuals who feel overlooked or marginalized, Ishmael's story offers hope. It demonstrates that God sees and hears all, providing guidance and blessings even in the midst of challenging circumstances. For those grappling with the consequences of their decisions, Ishmael's narrative serves as a reminder that God can redeem any situation and incorporate it into his greater plan. In exploring Ishmael's life, We also gain insights into the nature of God's promises. His covenant with Abraham was specific and exclusive, yet his blessings extended to Ishmael as well. This duality underscores the richness of God's grace, which encompasses both justice and mercy. Ishmael's story invites us to trust in God's plan, even when it diverges from our own expectations. It reminds us that God's faithfulness is not limited by human boundaries or circumstances. Thank you for watching Bible Stories Network. Stay tuned for more daily insights into the Bible. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share with others seeking to deepen their understanding of Scripture. See you next time.